Effects of soil pollution. Soil pollution caused by industrial waste and various contaminants has significant and wide range effects on ecosystems, agriculture, and human health. So toxic chemicals from industrial waste, they accumulate in soil and are absorbed by the plants. These contaminants then enter the food chain as organisms consume contaminated plants, leading to bioaccumulation in higher trophic levels. This can result in health problems for animals and humans that consume contaminated organisms. Then synthetic chemicals and heavy metals in the soil can contaminate food crops, making them unfit for consumption. This poses a serious health risk to humans and animals that depend on these crops for nutrition. Chemical industries may contribute to soil acidity or alkalinity through improper disposal of industrial waste. Extreme pH levels in soil can hinder nutrient availability for plants, stunting growth and reducing crop yields. This results in severe agricultural losses and economic impacts for farmers. Burning discarded plastics, textiles, and other materials like PVC, it releases highly toxic gases such as hydrochloric acid, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and other pollutants into the atmosphere. These emissions contribute to air pollution and pose respiratory health risks to nearby populations. Then solid waste, including plastics, sewage sludge, it can cover the soil surface. This interferes with the soil water holding capacity, means its moisture retention and its aeration, affecting the plant growth and soil health. Additionally, solid waste can emit offensive odors, impacting nearby communities and ecosystems. Soil pollution, particularly from heavy metals like arsenic, cadmium, lead, it can have severe health effects when these contaminants they enter into the food chain. Heavy metals such as arsenic, cadmium, and lead, these are toxic to human health even at low concentrations. They can accumulate in various organs and tissues over time, leading to a range of health problems. Heavy metals can cause kidney damage, cardiovascular diseases, dermatitis, sterility, hypertension, growth inhibition, anemia, neurological disorders, and behavioral changes. Prolonged exposure can result in irreversible damage to brain and nerve cells. Cadmium is known to be carcinogenic, meaning it has the potential to cause cancer with long-term exposure. This makes its presence in food products particularly concerning for human health very dangerous. Heavy metals can enter the environment through soil pollution. They may then be taken up by plants and subsequently ingested by the animals or humans, leading to bioaccumulation in the food chain. In aquatic ecosystems, radioactive contaminants from soil can enter streams and water bodies through rainfall. Aquatic flora and fauna absorb these contaminants, which then bioaccumulate in their tissues. When humans consume contaminated aquatic organisms as food, they may ingest these hazardous substances, disrupting the metabolic and physiological processes. So, what are the control strategies of soil pollution? So, first is minimize the use of pesticides. Implement integrated pest management strategies that emphasize biological controls, crop rotation, and pest-resistant crop varieties to reduce dependency on chemical pesticides. Then judicious fertilizer use. Apply fertilizers in optimum amounts, which means howsoever is required, not more than the required amounts, and on the appropriate timing based on the soil nutrient needs and crop requirements to minimize excess nutrient runoff and soil contamination. Then encourage the production and use of natural fertilizers such as compost, animal manure, green manure instead of synthetic chemical fertilizers. These organic amendments improve soil structure, nutrient availability, and microbial activity. Use bio-based pesticides derived from natural sources like plants, bacteria, fungi that target specific pests while minimizing harm to beneficial organisms and reducing environmental persistence. Then ban on toxic chemicals. Enforce bans on highly toxic chemicals and pesticides such as DDT that persist in the environment and pose risk to ecosystems as well as human health. Implement strict regulations on industrial activities to prevent improper disposal of hazardous chemicals and waste that can contaminate soil and groundwater. Then reforestation. Restore forest and grassland habitats to stabilize soil, reduce erosion, and enhance biodiversity. Trees and vegetation play a crucial role in soil conservation and nutrient cycling. Promote sustainable land use practices such as crop rotation, agroforestry, mixed cropping to maintain the soil fertility, prevent soil erosion, and improve water retention capacity of soil. Moreover, you should educate farmers, industries, and the general public about the impacts of soil pollution and the benefits of adopting sustainable practices. So first strategy is bioremediation. So this is a treatment process that uses microorganisms to break down or degrade the hazardous substances into less toxic or non-toxic substances. So this image illustrates the process by which microorganisms break down oil or other organic contaminants. So first part of the image, it shows microorganisms coming into contact with oil or any other organic contaminant. These microorganisms are often bacteria that have the capability to metabolize these substances. The microorganisms ingest the oil, means they take in the oil molecules into their cells to use them as a food source. Inside the microorganisms, the oil is metabolized. The metabolic process converts the oil into carbon dioxide and water. This is a result of cellular respiration, where the organic molecules are broken down to produce energy. Finally, the microorganisms release the byproducts of this metabolic process, which are carbon dioxide and water, back into the environment. Now, this process is a natural form of bioremediation, where microorganisms help clean up oil spills or other organic pollutants by breaking them down into less harmful substances, primarily carbon dioxide and water. This capability of microorganisms is utilized in various environmental cleanup efforts to manage pollution. So bioventing, next strategy of soil controlling soil pollution. It is an in situ remediation method that enhances the biodegradation of contaminants in the unsaturated soil zone. So you can see there is saturated zone as well as unsaturated zone. The unsaturated zone, it immediately lies below the land surface. It contains water as well as air in the open spaces or pores. Whereas saturated zone, it contains water in all the open spaces or pores. So let's understand with the help of image. This image illustrates the process of bioventing. So first is on the left side of the image, you can see air or oxygen is injected into the contaminated zone. This is usually done through wells or perforated pipes. The injection of air supplies the necessary oxygen for aerobic microorganisms. Then second is contaminated zone. The central part of the image shows the contaminated zone. Now it is the area where pollutants are present. This zone contains indigenous microorganisms that can degrade the contaminants. Then unsaturated zone. The contaminated zone lies within the unsaturated zone, which is the soil region above the water table, where soil pores are not fully saturated with water but contain air as well. Then aerobic biodegradation. In the presence of oxygen, indigenous microorganisms in the contaminated zone, they break down the contaminants through aerobic biodegradation. The contaminants are metabolized into less harmful substances, typically carbon dioxide, water, and biomass. Vacuum withdrawal. On the right side of the image, a vacuum system is used to withdraw air and any volatilized contaminants from the soil. This helps to remove the degraded byproducts and maintain the flow of air through the contaminated zone. Biosparging is an in situ remediation technique which is used to treat contaminated soil by enhancing the natural biodegradation processes of organic contaminants. Then it is similar to bioventing, but it is specifically designed to address contamination in both the unsaturated and saturated zone of the soil. Now, it aims to promote aerobic biodegradation of organic contaminants by supplying oxygen and, if necessary, nutrients also directly into the saturated soil zones. In some cases, nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, or trace minerals may be added along with the air to enhance the microbial growth and metabolism of contaminants. Similar to bioventing, as we studied in the previous slide, it also involves the installation of injection wells in the contaminated area. Then air is injected into the saturated soil zone through the wells. The injected air increases the dissolved oxygen levels in the soil and facilitates aerobic conditions which are necessary for microbial activity. Indigenous microorganisms present in the saturated soil, they naturally utilize the supplied oxygen to metabolize and degrade organic contaminants. This aerobic biodegradation process breaks down the contaminants into less harmful byproducts such as carbon dioxide and water. So this process is similar to bioventing. The difference is in bioventing, it focused on unsaturated zone only, but in this case, an unsaturated as well as saturated zone. Composting. Now, it is a natural and controlled process of decomposing organic materials, typically involving a mixture of organic waste such as food scraps, yard trimmings, and agricultural residues. It starts with the collection and mixing of organic materials. These can include non-hazardous organic substances such as agricultural wastes like straw, crop residues, animal manure, kitchen scraps, yard trimmings. Once mixed, the organic materials provide a substrate for the growth and activity of microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, and actinomycetes. These microorganisms initiate and drive the decomposition process. In the presence of oxygen, the microbial population breaks down both the organic materials and, importantly, any organic contaminants present in the soil. This process is facilitated by the enzymes produced by the microbes, which convert complex organic contaminants into simpler, less toxic compounds. Composting requires proper management of temperature and moisture levels to optimize the microbial activity. Turning the compost pile periodically will help in aerating the mixture, ensuring adequate oxygen supply for microbial growth and decomposition. Over time, the composting process matures as organic materials are broken down into stable humus-like substances. The resulting compost can then be used to improve soil fertility, soil structure, while also reducing the concentration of organic contaminants. Land farming. Now, it is an ex situ remediation technique which is used to treat contaminated soil by exposing it to natural processes in the controlled environment. So first, the contaminated soil is excavated or dug out from the contaminated site and spread out in a layer over a prepared bed or treatment area. The bed may include a liner or impermeable layer to prevent leaching of contaminants into the groundwater. The soil is periodically tilled or turned to aerate it and expose different layers to oxygen. This promotes aerobic conditions which are favorable for the activity of indigenous microorganisms. Indigenous microorganisms naturally present in the soil metabolize and degrade organic contaminants through aerobic biodegradation processes. These microorganisms utilize contaminants as a food source, breaking them down into simpler, less toxic compounds over the time. Now, during this process, factors such as moisture content, temperature, nutrient availability are monitored and adjusted as needed to optimize the microbial activity and degradation rates. Now, land farming is typically effective for treating the superficial layers, approximately 10 to 35 centimeter of the contaminated soil. Deeper contamination may require other remediation techniques or repeated treatment.